Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at how to change colors in Photoshop. So as you can see by the picture here, we have a bit of a fashion faux pas. We told the drummer and the guitarist to wear different colored pants, but unfortunately, they both wore red to the photo shoot. And now we got to sort of deal with it. We don't want them both having red pants. So what can we do? Well, we could tell them to come back in and reshoot the photos, but we can do a little bit of Photoshop magic here and fix this up. So first thing we got to talk about is selections. Obviously, we don't want to change the color of everything, so we just want to pick one particular pair of pants here and change the color. So let's pick the guitarist's pants for the color change. So what I'm going to do is a few things. I'm going to do the selection. Now there's a bunch of different selection tools over here. There's the old school lasso and magnetic lasso tool. We're going to skip over those and use something called the object selection tool. This is something new in Photoshop probably 2020, and it really makes it pretty easy. The other thing is come over here and make sure you change it from rectangle to lasso. So that lets us do sort of a irregular shape. Basically what we're going to do is do a rough selection, a very rough selection of the pants, and then we'll get Photoshop to figure it out. So what I'm going to do here, and just making sure that I'm on the images layer here, is just drag it, and I'm being very, well, pretty quick here, reasonably careful, but not overly, and just coming back here. And so what's going to happen there is that Photoshop's going to think about it, and I did it very quickly, and choose the red pants. Now, if I zoom in a little bit, it is not perfect, but it is very good. So it's a great starting point. So I guess, whoops, let me just go back to that. I think I clicked off of it. I'm just going to go to my move tool here and then just sort of zoom in. And so it looks like it followed the guitar pretty good. It did the pant leg on the outside there reasonably well along the leg. So everything's looking pretty good. There is a little bit here where it got confused by the shadows, and obviously we should probably get rid of these little spots. So what can you do? Do it again? Well, no. You would just come over here, and below that, my personal favorite is the quick selection tool. And I make sure I've got the plus on here. And so what you can either do, just make my circle bigger here, and I'll explain that in a second. You can either add to the selection or remove from it. The plus will add to the selection. So how I can change this brush size, is basically a brush here, is with the square brackets, and they're located just to the right of the P key. So if you sort of on the left side or the right side of that, the opening and closing square brackets, they'll make this bigger or smaller. So I'm going to get it a little bit smaller and hit the plus key here. Now you can see things have gone awry. It's gone into the guitar. Never fear. If you hold down the Alt key, you will see that it goes to a minus. And then you can just kind of do the same thing where we just sort of remove it. And what you're really doing is you're training Photoshop. So just make sure you get rid of all these marching ants, as they're called. A little bit there. And then that's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit here, a little plus on that side. And then that's looking decent. Then with the legs there, I'll probably go a little bit smaller. Again, we want to remove it, so I go to the minus by pressing Alt, and I just collect, and yeah, pretty good. And I'll accept that. So what we've got here is a reasonable selection of the pants that we want to change the color of. Now, if you have to go back later on, and we'll talk about refining it, you can. It's not a big deal. So, but we'll see what it looks like here. So I'm going to come down to my adjustment layers that we saw the other day, or the other video, I guess, and then do the Hue Saturation. And so you can see right here, we've got the pants selected. So we've got a layer mask. And what I'm going to do here is go into the hue, and I'm going to shift it. Now, you can start to see the pants are changing color. Okay, so very easily, we can give them a different pair of pants, or basically a different pair of pants, at least a different color there. Now, one thing that's a little bit odd, I've turned it to green here, but it's turned pink. It's because it's kind of shifting it over. It's a little, it's like taking this color and just sort of shifting it. If you turn to colorize on, it actually makes a bit more sense. So this is sort of it's sort of this hue, but I'm turning them green, as you can see, and then into the blues and so on. So oftentimes people like to turn the colorize on. It's just a little bit easier. You can give them whatever color pants you want. I'm going to give them blue pants here. Saturation, increases or decreases the amount of color. And then lightness, I wouldn't play around with this too much because it sort of pulls away some of the detail, but you can sort of modestly adjust that if you want. Okay, so whatever you think looks good. I'm going to show you another little thing here, is how to affect the lightness, and we're going to use, or the lighting, we're going to use a levels layer, adjustment layer. We'll do that right here. So I'm going to come down, grab another one, and we're going to go to levels. Now, first thing first, you don't want to redo the selection. Now you could copy this, and that's fine as well. I'm going to show you a little trick where we can make a group. So right here, there is a folder thing that makes a group. And so you can see there's your group. And just like in any program, if you hold Shift down, you can multi-select. So I've grabbed both of these. I'm going to throw them into the group. Now, they can close up, right? So this here, you could rename this group to sort of like the color change or something like that, whatever you want to call it. And what's really neat about this is you can actually take this and throw it up here. So I'm going to take this layer mask and throw it on here. And then in fact, I can get rid of this layer mask, delete layer mask. And this layer mask is affecting both of the items in the group, or however many items you got in the group. We've got 2 here. So let's talk about the levels though. So with levels, what you've got here is you've got your sort of your darks and your whites and your grays in your middle. So as I sort of shift the middle, that actually does the most effectiveness just for changing the brightness of it. If you come over here, these are sort of the limits. So whatever is considered sort of, you bringing this down, this is as dark as it gets. Okay, so now it's kind of just off of gray. So if you can see, I'm basically getting rid of all the darks here. Okay, now I would probably keep that, maybe decrease the lightness a bit. So I'm going to just drop this one down. Whatever you think looks good. Again, you know, you can play around and mess around and see what they are. So yeah, I mean, I think if you sort of click with a little light, yeah, I think that darker color looks a little bit better. Okay, so that is some of these ideas of color change. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that maybe our selection wasn't perfect. You can sometimes have, you see there's a little bit there, it's maybe not smooth. We can do a few things to help improve that. And that's by viewing the mask. So if I click on the mask, that brings up this. Again, I can click on select and mask, and it brings up a sort of a more detailed selection menu. And what I can do here, usually I like to switch this from this onion skin, it's a little hard to see, to white and black. And it's very easy. And in fact, you can start to see some of the imperfections that we may not have noticed before. First things first is that you'll notice that it's a very, very sort of ragged, not smooth edge there. Let's try to improve that. And so what you can try to do there is improve the smoothness. And you can see right away it has smoothed those out. And in fact, some of this stuff has been lost because of that. Probably we don't want to feather it here. That would sort of make the edges blurry. I wouldn't suggest that. You might want to increase the contrast. That will actually refine the edge and increase its sharpness. So I think you're sort of seeing that there. Shifting edge can shift it out or shift it in, depending on the situation. We might even consider shifting it out a little bit here. To me, it's a little hard to see when you're in this, but you can kind of get the idea of what's going on here. You can also come over here onto the far left side, and you can see there's your quick selection tool you can still use. You can use sort of the refine edge tool. That's sort of, you know, I haven't really used these too much, but you could add some more to the lasso tool and so on. Okay, so there's lots of stuff that you can try there. So I'm going to hit OK and see if that improves it. And I think it does. Now there's a few little issues right along the edge here, and I'm going to just come in and zoom in, and you can see it right there. So what you can do to fix this up is work on the mask. So make sure that you're selected the mask. So for example, you can see there's the little white boxes around it. And grab your brush, just a regular brush, and you can use the B hotkey, okay? And then we're going to use this black and white here. So the idea is that black will mask, white will unmask. So in this case, I probably want to unmask this. You can change the brush again with those square brackets. So I want to unmask. So I'm going to leave it on white, and I'm just going to paint that edge in. And there you can see it's turning that little bit to blue. And so this is where, quality Photoshop work takes a little bit of patience because, Photoshop's helped us out, but just to get that little bit, I'm just sort of going through, making sure things are looking okay. I won't do it all so I don't bore you. But, you might want to just spend that little bit of extra time to ensure that you don't have that sort of little bit of red around it. Okay, and I just want to be careful. I'm not spending as much time as I should. This is a little bit hard to tell. I mean, I think that's the guitar, although a little bit here. I could drag that in, just clean that up a little bit, maybe along the bottom of the guitar as well. Okay, so those are sort of, like I said, you can continue sort of working on that, and you can do that on your own, but you can see how good that is. What's kind of cool though is, right, because this is non-destructive, we've used layer masks, we haven't affected the image below directly, we haven't actually adjusted that, so I can still go back and see the original and see my modified version of it. Very, very, very useful. Yeah, I think that's about it for here. So feel free to test this out on anything, see what you can do to change the color of objects. Pay attention to being very careful about your selections, refining those selections, using the idea of a group to hold, say, more than one adjustment layer with the same mask. And just to add to that, what was really effective about putting this into the group was that I was able to affect both, the levels and the hue saturation with the one mask. If they had been separate masks, I would have had to do that process twice, right? So making sure that you have it grouped because you're working on the same sort of selection. That really is like I said, speeds you up, right? Because you don't have to sort of go and affect both masks. You can just have the one mask, change it, and then that helps both adjustment layers here. And you might even have multiple adjustment layers beyond just two. All right, so try out some color changes using those techniques.